everyone. Welcome to Freebird Spirit YouTube channel. The discussion continues with Chrys, Wisdom Behind Awakenings. And here we are again. This is discussion 18, and I'm losing track. So, but Chrys puts me back on track, so that's all good. So today we're gonna dive in, but the first thing that so my spirit team comes in. Chris's spirit team is with her. We're diving into these discussions, so it's not like just me and Chrys here talking. We have our teams here, and also this beautiful spirit who vibrates at the frequency of what we would consider the name of the word mother. It is so interesting, and I digress here because it's so interesting to me. I've never had to know names. Like that wasn't a thing for me. But I know that a lot of people enjoy knowing a name, like what's the name of my spirit, one of my spirit guides, or like that. And I understand that. I get it. I get that it helps connect, when people ask for readings in regards to their loved ones, or their fur family, names help, so that I understand that. However, when we work with our spirit team and our spirit guides, because there's no beginning or end here, there's no, if you understand what I mean, in as far as spirit and our souls, we have so many lives and so many names that it's like I am who I am, basically. And I'm not saying I am, I'm not quoting Jesus. I'm just saying literally, you are who you are. And it's more of a frequency, is what Mother was saying. So her frequency, when she was explaining this to me, her frequency would be similar to what we would consider here on Earth as the word mother. So I thought that was very interesting. And yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom on that one, Chrys?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Do you have a guide? Do your guides have names and stuff like that?
I was laughing because the first time I did a reading with you, I said to you, do you know what the name of my spirit guide is? And
there you go. See,
let's call him George.
Yeah, because literally, I was
like, okay, George. But
literally. And so in that, George, who just is smiling right now, it literally, the frequency of who he is would be similar to what we would know as George here. That's not really his name, but the frequency of the name George fits, it suits, and it works.
Well, so that means that the names we have frequency also.
Yes, 100%.
Right. When in the late 70s, I changed the spelling for my first name, and it was Christine, and my parents had named me, and my grandfather was an evangelical minister, and I was saying, no, I'm not doing that. And I was living with someone who was Jewish, and we would have these talks every day about how it could happen here. And I kept, of course, I was in my 20s. I'm like going, no, it could never happen here. No, it could never happen here. Of course, we're watching some of it happen here. And at that point, I don't know what possessed me. I really, honestly, I think it was guided, because I went, I don't have to have this name. And I just changed the I to a Y.
Well, yeah, and it would make sense because your vibration is more crystalline, like a crystal. How do you say that word? What am I trying to say here?
Crystalline.
Crystalline, yes. Is that the link? Do you have does
No,
that?
but that wasn't what I thought of when I did it. What I thought of was how to tell my Jewish friends that I didn't have Christ in my name anymore. It was that fundamental.
Right.
And so, but it became my professional name. I mean, I kept the legal name, but I changed my professional name. So now when I have to put it down on paper, like like with doctors and stuff,
Oh,
I cringe. It has an absolute wrong vibration to it.
mhm.
So I can feel it when it happens. It's like, no, this isn't
Right.
no, that's not me.
That is the that's the frequency of the name. And you know, well, when when I was born, my name was Veronica. Veronica Lynn. Yeah. And you know, I had that name for, I don't know, a year and a half, two, whatever. I don't know how. And then it was changed to Deborah Colleen. And it's interesting because I don't resonate with either one of those names.
No.
And the frequency of either one of those names it never have felt like a fit.
Right.
So it's not surprising to me that I don't identify with naming guides, but I understand why people like to have names. It's because that it's kind of easier to connect in when you have a name. But I'm telling you all, I'm telling you all that it's a frequency that you're connecting into. It's not really the name.
So what do you think your name really is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I didn't change mine because I didn't want to hurt my parents because I knew that it meant something to them. So I kept it legally. But
yeah, I would never change my name legally. I just, you know, that's just too much.
No, that was too much stuff.
If people want to call me a nickname of something,
you know, I told you about working with my ET medium friend, and I kept saying to her, "That is not your name. That's not your name." I knew that from the moment I met her. That is not your name.
Wow.
My whole being felt that. It's like, no, that's not your name. I don't know what her name was, but
I was just going to ask, do you know what my name is?
Not yet.
Not yet. You're gonna listen.
But Debbie's not it. I knew that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the same energy behind saying, oh, no, but it's not Debbie. No.
But I do know that, you know, that's how people can connect with me here. And we do have a certain, we recognize the frequency of someone calling our name.
Yeah.
So you can be, there could be 10 Chris's in the room, but if someone calls your name out, you, Chrys, in the same room, you'll hear it because of the frequency of that name going out.
Well, you should come to Thanksgiving with my family because my nephew's name is Chrys.
Right. And so, but
somebody yells out Chrys, we both go, what?
But if you're in tune, like if you're listening, literally, you know,
well, they have different tones. They use different tones with us, right?
Different tones, and the different frequency of your name. Yeah. So very interesting. It's beautiful. It really calls to the uniqueness of everyone, because you literally you can have 5 Debbies, but we're all very, very unique to ourselves. And so again, it calls to the uniqueness and the beauty of that. Now what I understand as we come together today for this discussion is linking into the family that are here watching. And so everyone, that all the family that is watching this, even though it's a replay, let's connect in. Let's connect into the collective, understanding our connection, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that collective. What is the collective as we connect in to have this discussion together?
All right. Well, do you want to start with what the collective is?
I think I'll pass that baton right on over.
You're going to pass that to me, are you? Okay. Well, everybody, she already just said that whole thing to me, so I'm good. I've been trapped. In my world, collective has always been a more political concept, and so collectives are formed. We've talked about this before, that the Haudenosaunee, a lot of indigenous communities lived collectively, which meant that they shared everything. They shared everything. So there wasn't anyone who was poor. There wasn't anybody who was hungry. Everybody had equal education, all of that. And it's been one of those topics. I'm going off here. It's been one of those topics that's been highly rejected by sort of the power structure that we live with, because to live collectively is to leave capitalism. Because capitalism relies on inequalities of wealth and income, and collectivity does not. And so when we talked last time about the revolution that I was apparently a part of, and that it was a series of communities that were sharing the wealth, that's a big threat to authoritarian governments, authoritarian states like the Roman Empire, and Europeans coming to this part of the world and seeing indigenous people sharing everything. It was very threatening, because their belief system is one about the only real moral thing. I did listen to something like this yesterday. The only real moral thing is to alter everything that you encounter and take everything away from anyone who's supposedly a heathen, right? So, so there was a speech in the Congress yesterday. I think it was yesterday or Friday. And AOC was one of the speakers, but there was a Republican man, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name. I've never seen him before. And he was making the argument that we have to protect capitalism. And he actually said these words: capitalism is as benevolence.
Wait, say that again.
He said capitalism has benevolence. Right. You can't put those words in the same sentence.
It doesn't even make sense.
Because when he said it, and he said it was such like matter of fact, what's the matter with you, AOC? Capitalism is benevolence. It's like, no, it's not a religion. It's an economic system. It's not a religion. It's not connected to religion. It's never connected to religion. Wow. Religion is not in the Constitution. I mean, those collapses into what people think is a taken for granted is not a taken for granted. It's not that way. These are sound bites. And I caught that, and I sat there going, whoa. And she was good because she never really fielded it. She didn't get caught in the trap. She kept to her path, and her path was to make the argument for the legislation she was trying to move. But he kept insisting that she was off base because, the only way to help people is through capitalism. It's like, no.
That's amazing. But she's really good. Staying on her path. She knows.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So your question is really about what is the collective, and we talk about it all the time. When we're talking about spiritual stuff, about the collective. Mm-hmm. So there's multiple meanings, obviously, but the collective is still the collective. It's still a unit. It's still a unity. It's still a coming together. It's still a sharing. But when you talk about it from what the stuff you've been talking about, we even go higher, right?
Right.
I should break into song now about going higher. Let's go higher.
Yay.
Eat your heart out, Lisa. I can sing too.
She'll love that. So the collective, she wants to remind us is when I'm channeling messages, she often brings in that idea of collective, the collective in the consciousness and like that. And what she's bringing in there is literally that we are threaded all together. And with this spiritual thread, you can call it spiritual thread, you can call it whatever you want. It's a thread that we are literally connected together with, is what she's showing. So if someone on the thread over there, that's connected, because we're all connected, is hurt, we're all hurt. So that's what she's bringing in when the collective consciousness, because since we're connected by that thread, that consciousness, and when we're more aware of that, and we are more aware and conscious of all of that, we're more aware of our actions here in this plane and in this density. And we're moving towards that direction from what I can see. And I feel like the reason it was brought up the last time in regards to that revolution that you're in Athens, against this society that maneuvered collectively. Everything was in a collective manner that you were protecting. You guys won, right? You won the war
against. So they tell me, yes.
Yeah, so that's what they say.
Yes.
So, but we're fighting to get that back, because eventually, it was, and societies continue to fight to get back to that collective.
Well, there's all these great contradictions about all of that too. That's I think that when you talk about economic systems like capitalism, you're really talking about a system that actually isn't in the best interests collectively, right?
Right.
But whenever we talk about family, we're talking about a collective.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the people listening to this channel,
mm-hmm.
you're talking about a collective.
Yeah,
it's a
family.
unit.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you ran your family like capitalism, right?
Right.
Only those people in the family who have the better clothes and the better food and the better bed get to, sleep in the best bedroom, that kind of stuff. It doesn't work like that. So that's where the great contradictions are, because we argue, in the political realm, we argue for things that are not shared or equal. And yet, and there's all that tension about like Medicare and Social Security and welfare benefits and Medicaid and being able to share the wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing you do when you have a family, right? Oh, we have this pot over here and we're going to make sure all of us are okay, right? But then there's this whole other group that's saying, oh, no, you can't have that pot. That's my pot. So right. It's really the real contradiction and the real clash between the sort of collective or family centered way of thinking and the economic system.
So how what we're moving towards and what and as we continue to grow and live consciously in that scenario, in regards to who gets the best bed, right? Mm-hmm. It would be it wouldn't be measured on your status. It would be measured on your need, right? So, well, looking at everybody, this person would get the most benefit out of having the large bed, and no one would care because everyone is put in the best bed for them that suits them, and that in your conscious, and everybody's happy because it fits, and it's right. It's not due to status. It's due to uh, uh, you and your abilities and like that. So if we lived in conscious, you would do a job that suits all of you, the whole of you, all your abilities and natural abilities and desires and love and like so if you love taking things apart and putting things together, that you're going to be in a job that does that, because that is just amazing to you, right? So it's all maneuvered through that conscious understanding of what everybody's brings to the table. And so that is conscious living. So when I think we were talking before about collectives, if you have a market that's a collective market, a food collective, you have all these entities coming together that I'm really good at farming carrots, so they bring the carrot. You know what I mean? So you have all the collective of
the farmers market. Yes.
Yeah, like the farmers market and like
right.
coming together, and it's beautiful.
Well, there's many spaces like that, and of course people will there are people who will argue that we have to have capitalism, otherwise we won't have a lot of wealth. And it's like, we have a lot of wealth whether we have capitalism or not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then you have all these people who are depressed, and everybody's on antidepressants, and everybody's anxious and taking anxiety medicine. It's because we're not in our ideal.
Well, I also think that one of the reasons that we're having so much strife, so much violence, where people are breaking down, is because they can't reach that level that capitalism is dictating.
Well, that we have, there are different pieces here. Yes. The narrative is you have to do this, and this to be, you want, and we also all want to be the wealth, because that's what we're being told. That's the ideal life, is more and more and more and more.
And you're not okay unless you've got,
and you're not okay if you're, so that's a piece of it. But also the other piece that people forget is that we've also been told what we need to be doing. You need to do this. If you don't do this, if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not this, if you're not that, then you're nobody. And so you get into these positions because you, of course, want to be somebody or do what your parents told you needed to do. And then you're stuck in this job. And you hate it because it has nothing to do with your vibration or frequency that we started out with today. So really coming in line with your frequency and what you came here to do. Quarantine offered a lot of people to find that. They were forced home.
Yeah. And the shift frequency.
Shift, and they were like taking a real look and understanding their own frequency, because they were left alone with it for a really long time. And so, and everybody's like, well, nobody's working anymore. Nobody's coming to work and working in these the service industry or this or that, because they're lazy now, and I don't think it was about lazy. I think it was because they realized it didn't fit their frequency. Maybe somebody was lazy, but I really believe that people were adjusting to their own true north. So
part of it is that one of the things we learned was that some of the work we're doing, we don't want to do.
We don't want to do it because it doesn't align with our true.
No, we don't want to do it. And so what some are calling lazy is that it's not work I want to do. Now, there's other work I might like to do.
Yeah.
Like I might like to build something in my house, or I might like to, build something for a neighbor, or I might like to, write a book, or, there's all sorts of paint a painting. There's all sorts of things you can do that you like.
Yes.
It doesn't make you lazy if you don't like the work that you've been hired to do. But we've collapsed all that together, and that's where I think it ends up going. But yeah.
Exactly.
I think that when the concept of threads, when it's fully realized, it becomes fabric, right?
Right.
So it's more than thread, it becomes the fabric of our lives, becomes the sort of what many people have talked about with the planet being a grid, sort of
Yes.
energetic
Yes.
grid around it, and ley lines and all that. It's all together in a fabric, right?
Mhm,
And we're
mhm.
part of that fabric. We're not separate. So we are part of, here I go, but here, we're all part of that energy, all of
Yes.
the energy that is the field. We're in all of it. We are all of it. We're not separate from it. We like to think we are, but we're not. So, so when you start to talk about consciousness, your consciousness is connected to the fabric that you're part of. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So what do you want to do now?
So I taking this conversation and realizing who we are, right? And how when we're not in our aligned with what we are doing here on this planet, it causes strife, it causes angst, it causes all kinds of things, right? Um, and so I want to kind of maneuver this conversation over to women.
Who?
I know, exactly. You said it well. Who? And the frequency of the feminine, and how like we were just talking about, everyone comes in with a special frequency, and to help with the collective in one way or another. And it's the perfect frequency, what we come in with. And so why is it that from the beginning of time that from history that I know about, has the patriarchy tried to squash the feminine energy frequency?
The interesting thing about what's going on, I was watching football last night and asking myself some of those same questions. And
why can't we play on the same playground? Why can't we play well together? It's like, I don't get it.
we can. And I think, I mean, I've had many conversations today about this stuff. And I've got 3 classes, so, I'm around the 20-year-olds. I should tell you that last week I did a chat with with the biggest group, 50 students, and I
Wow.
wanted to see like where they were. And I thought, how am I going to do this with 50 on Zoom? So I said, how about if I ask you some questions, you put one word in the chat, right? So I thought, I'm going to see where they stand sort of in terms of some of this cultural war stuff's going on. So I said, so what is woke? There wasn't one negative comment.
Wow.
Not one. I was stunned. I just was like, what? No one's negative? No one. They were all very positive, very inclusive, very sort of, when you're woke, you're paying attention to other people's feelings and being, supportive. I mean, the language I was like stunned. Now, I shouldn't have been stunned because I think the younger generations that are coming in are much more progressive than the older generations and much more inclusive and ready to sort of move the earth in another direction. And yeah, I immediately went to Greta because you were talking about Greta yesterday, and I thought to myself, if only Greta would start a march on the East Coast and take it all the way to the West Coast right now, after all this stuff has happened. And then I went online to see, and she's already done some of this stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like, oh, this could be massive, where she starts on the East Coast and people just join in everywhere, and literally thousands of people walk across the country. And, it's sort of like, go ahead, deny that, politicians.
Right. Exactly.
It's going to have to be so big. Anyway, that was a separate thing. But what was I saying about, they were saying about, I was saying the younger generation, and something led up to that.
Well, my question is, how do we crush the systemic patriarchy?
Systemic patriarchy. Well, actually, I used that phrase when we were talking before, and patriarchy is by definition systemic, because it's a totalizing concept. That's my fault. It's a totalizing concept. So racism is not a totalizing concept, but it is systemic. So those are differences. Capitalism is a totalizing concept. Patriarchy, they define everything. So, the question that's been asked for decades and decades and decades is, where did patriarchy come from? And so you're sort of asking a version of that. And it's certainly not in everything. It's not in everything. There are cultures around the world that are not, they're not matriarchal. That would be the opposite. They're matrilineal, which means that they share the wealth, but they pass property and homes from mother to daughter instead of father to son. So there's a few of those, and but I think that there's a way in which can I pause you for just a second?
Here, well, let me go ahead and pause.
Yeah.
Did we have a BB?
We're having a BB moment. It's people are like coming home from work, and so they're walking by the house.
Oh, yes. So she has to say hello.
She has to be in charge. Yes. But this is a tricky topic. And it's tricky on a lot of levels, because what I think where I was going about the younger generation is that the men are not the same. They're not the same. They're not some are, but there's a shift, and it's a shift like, no, I want to stay home with my kids. My nephew's like that. No, I don't want to go out and work outside. No, I want to go with my kids. There's a shift away from some of that. This is my strength. I'm going to do this, and this is your strength. You're going to do that. And it doesn't have anything to do with gender.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That.
I mean, I was in graduate school. Somebody said, no, if you're feminine, you don't take the trash out. And I was like, what? It's trash. It's a task. It's not a gender. It's a task. And I never got that, and you're one of those people who will like, I'd like to fix that, or I'd like to construct that. And nobody's saying to you, oh, you can't because you have a vagina.
Exactly.
Nobody's saying that to you. It's like, it's so goofy. And I was always the voice in graduate school that drove the professors crazy, because I was always like, gender for what? What are we doing it for? What's it for? I don't get this. You're just going to follow this particular path just because. How about what's useful? So that's more of a mindset of a collective, right? And a collective, in a family that's a collective, everybody has their task, and that's what it is. It's a task. It's a responsibility, but it's not based on your body, unless it requires that you carry something heavy, and then we hope you can. Just because you're big doesn't mean you can carry it. So, there's all those things. So, yeah, so I think that when we were talking before about, your question was really, why have men had trouble with women? Not all men have.
Why is it a continual? I mean, we can see it, ebbing and flowing through our society everywhere. Yeah. This patriarchy.
Well, it's built into the laws. It's built into the structure. There's an ancient, not ancient, but close to ancient, set of beliefs that have traveled from various cultures that have made men be the primary and women are their property, or women have to follow what they say. And we all know that that's traveled through a whole lot of cultures. We don't know,
like marriage.
yeah, exactly. Marriage is the pinnacle.
It's part of this. Yeah.
It is the bigger structure, but yeah, like I went off.
Sorry, I just got you off track.
Well, it took me into marriage instead of what
I
was.
know.
But those are,
It's an example.
marriage is well, because last week we were talking about Drew Michaels and his thing about marriage, and he's absolutely right. Since when do you need the government to tell you what you should be doing? And most people don't even think that way. They think, oh no, it's religious. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's it's religion, or it's love. I'm not really in love unless I'm married. It's like, what part of this is that you don't get? If you love somebody, you love somebody, period. It's not up to the state to say, oh, now you can get these benefits because you love somebody and you sign a piece of paper. It doesn't make any sense.
It's a scheme.
Well, it's a way to manage people, but it's more than that. It is patriarchy because it's a way to manage who will get the stuff.
Yeah, and then not even going into taking the man's name.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow! That all began, you guys, from
Yep.
You became somebody's property.
Yeah. Well,
so they
yeah.
you took that name, and that meant you were their property.
Yeah. Exactly. And
so
yeah.
And I understand some people take the name because when they have kids, they want everybody to have the same name. That that's okay.
So make up a name.
Make up a new name. Make
up a name. I mean,
and then the whole system of, well, when you're doing genealogy, you can follow the names,
and you can't. That's the myth. You can follow the men's names,
right?
The women's names get obliterated because they get folded under the male name, and you can't find
over and over and over again.
Yes, right.
Just property.
Right. So, there was something else in there that we were talking about the patriarchy, about gender.
Yeah, gender.
I think gender is a really important concept. I really do.
Yeah. So let me lay this out a little bit here first before you dive into gender. So, your sex is something you're assigned at birth. Like you come in and your sex is either a female or male sex. The gender, however, is fluid, and I'm seeing just it can be from this to this, anything in between, and that is gender. So, so when I look at me, for instance, I came in and the sex I was assigned at birth is female, because I got the vagina thing going on. So I'm a female, right? So, however, well, you said it earlier, so I can say it again. We can say that word on this channel. Don't choke.
I know, I was drinking tea when you did that.
So, you okay over there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but when you're looking at gender, where do I fall on this gender spectrum, right? Where do I fall? Because I love sports. I played football. I played every single sport you can imagine. I am a fix-it person. Give me a hammer, give me a tool belt. Give me, you know what I mean? Like, I don't do the normal wearing pretty dresses, and well, I mean, but then there's sometimes when I go, oh, I kind of want to dress up right now and wear a dress or whatever. So it's fluid. It is a spectrum. So I wouldn't put myself as a, what people would say, or, full female or feminine. I am also very masculine. So I have both. And so where does that put me on the spectrum of gender?
We
Right.
need to get you a tuxedo.
So that I would love to wear a tuxedo. But so that's what I'm talking about with that's my definition of sex and gender.
Okay, so I want to complicate that a little bit.
Okay, she's complicating it, guys.
Just a little bit. Because I have a vagina thing going on too.
So your sex assignment at birth was female. Gotcha.
Okay, so I guess I want to be a little careful about the trans issue.
Right, and they're in the spectrum.
I want to make sure that we say, because I know what we mean. I want to make sure that we say that nature is highly variable.
And nature is highly variable.
You may have been labeled female from birth, but it didn't take into account your variability.
Exactly.
Your gender and sex variability.
Oh, okay.
So you could have had hardly any breasts, for example, growing up, and flat chested and a deep voice, but you still had a vagina. So
that is 100% true.
Okay, yes. So and most of the time those kinds of variations are subtle enough that they're not totally visible. So did we scare her away?
She's right here on the desk. Look on the outlook for the workers that are in the house right now. Yeah. Okay. She's protecting me apparently.
She's letting you know I've got a vagina thing going on.
She's got a vagina thing going on. She's protecting me.
Oh God. When I was teaching women's sexuality years ago, they couldn't even say those words. They couldn't even say them. I had to really prep them to say them, and they had never looked at themselves. So we had to have assignments where they went home and actually did that.
Got the mirrors out and took a look. And what do I look like down there?
Okay, come on, kids, you can do this. Anyway, so the gender thing is really the way in which this massive structure of patriarchy has defined it for us. But the truth is, and we're going into the truth now, the truth is nature's highly variable. So there's as much variation between you and I as there is between you and some guy, right? So, and sometimes more. There's the amount of variation is huge.
Yes.
And the more you understand that, and the more you understand that that level of variation throughout the natural world is always there. So then it changes how you think about everything. Because instead of it all being so neatly organized, and I was so noticing this the other day, I forget what I was doing, was that why do we have to organize everything into like neat boxes? Yeah. You're a man, you're a woman, you do this work, you do that work, you're white, you're black. It's like, what the frick is this? Yeah. Why are we? And I think the one phrase that came out of my mouth was, just so you can make it easy for yourself. It's not easy at all. It doesn't fit. Nothing fits. You're always struggling to get it back in the box. And that's really what's going on with politics right now. They're trying to get it all. It's gotten really messy. Now we've got to get it all back in the box. Remember, the box was neat before. This is the culture wars.
Whoa, see, whoa. Mm-hmm.
Did you see that video I sent you of that guy, that dad who was reading a passage from a Yale book to a school board? And he was reading this passage. I sent it to you.
I did watch it. Hold on. She opened this door and I'm getting the blast of negative.
Yes. Okay.
Of course, as soon as I go to kind of shut it, so I don't shut it all the way, you guys, so she can get in and out. But yeah, I'm having work done on the house today, you guys, and so some of the windows are open in the house, but literally with wind chill, it's in the negative temperatures. And so every time she opens this door, which she just did again, to look out,
You need a stick
the blast.
over. You just poke it.
Oh, that's a good idea. All right, you guys, sorry. One more thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I have it so it's just cracked like this, so I should be okay.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. All right, I'm back.
Yeah. All right. So vagina.
We need it. That's a new t-shirt.
Yeah. The vaginas are the wisdom behind awakening.
Vagina is the wisdom behind
Awakening. There you go. I rest my case.
Done.
Yeah.
But I like this. Nature is very variable. And so when you come in with, as the doctors label us as we come in, female, if you're assigned female at birth, that is a variable to every single person. So it is not the same from one body to the next.
But it's also what the West does. If there's a variation in the body, then the Western culture medicine corrects it.
Right. Then they surgically correct it.
In the trans debates, they're not talking about how the medical profession,
Right.
corrects it
Right.
from birth.
Okay. I apologize again, everyone. Hold on. I'm going to have to pause here. All right.
So the medical, what we don't say when we're in these trans discussions,
yeah,
the medical profession, when a baby is born, if it has what appears to be genitalia of both sexes, offers to correct it for the parents. Okay.
Right.
And at least I'm assuming they offer, but maybe sometimes
there is. Yeah.
But if the parents decide later on to allow it to be corrected, now we're starting to protest that. But we didn't say anything when the medical profession was correcting it. So we've got that piece. But if you look at indigenous cultures and you look around the planet, think about that for a minute. They don't have access. There are a lot of cultures don't have access to cosmetic surgeries. They don't have access to a medical profession that corrects bodies. The Navajo have a whole history of, if you're born with the genitalia of both sexes in some form, you get to choose, and they have a whole ritual and a ceremony. So this is all Western culture's idea of how to keep things in order.
Yes. Yeah. What is that? What is that? We need to keep things in order like that. What is that? Like
we've got to keep men in charge. We got to keep men in charge. As long as the word feminine applies to submissive, nurturing, homebody, birthing, those kinds of things, that's good. The moment we say feminine includes everything else, then we're not okay. And that won't happen because, anyway, and then the guys get all worked up if a guy displays some level of feminine behavior, then we've got to destroy him.
Yeah.
So, it's trying to manage these, and we're back to boxes again.
Back to boxes.
Trying to manage these boxes.
Wow. Didn't we start this whole series?
Yes, we did.
With boxes. Wow.
But I think one of the questions I have for us is to try and sort out how do we shift so that the collective is more inclusive. I don't know. There's a couple questions here, right? Because we had another one earlier when we were talking about we often talk about how there are a lot of people who are doing really horrible things, right? Really destructive, harmful things.
Yes.
And we are always like trying to we're all contacting you guys and saying, come on, tell us, is 45 going to get arrested? We're all like trying to get it, like, let's get it back in the box. And at the same time, we get readings from the various channels that are coming in saying, this is pushing this stuff up so it's visible. It's making it so that we see it and we know enough to react to it. And then when we talk about it, and what you and I were talking about earlier, is that the collective then becomes all of us. So when we say we are one, when that negative stuff happens, we have to do our part. We have to raise ourselves up. The rest of the collective has to raise up and do the part of making that visible. That's not okay. And we need to stop it. It can't be waiting around for somebody to fix it. That's one of the problems with
because we're all part of it.
Yeah.
Now, we have to become, the challenge for us that's being presented to us is modeling what the world can look like, and also modeling that stepping out to raise that collective, modeling who we should be. So that's why, with these conversations, we're encouraging ourselves, each other, and we're encouraging the family here to rise up, to be better. And I feel like one of the comments that came through last week was, how do I be better? How do I do better? Because I think we talked about, we have an opportunity to do better, to be better today. When we wake up in the morning, we're like, okay, so I can be better today. How can I do better today? Be better. Well, it's all about raising up instead of assisting in the mud down here and staying down here and keeping the collective down, since we're all connected, right? Do you have a better way of saying that? You're looking at me.
I'm not.
Like,
you did that last week too. It's like, don't you have a better way of saying it? No, I don't have a better way. You do just fine. No, it's I'm getting other messages. I'm getting other messages.
Bring them in.
Well, I'm just wondering what Mother has to say about all that.
Okay. Okay, so she's where I'm not channeling yet, but she's showing me something here. Because as soon as I started opening up and allowing to do the channeling piece, there was a lot of emotion. So I said, show me what this piece is. And so she's showing me the amount of suffering and pain in the world is outweighing the joy.
Right.
And we need to equalize that. People are becoming comfortable in their pain and suffering, and it becomes their story. Mm-hmm. And it's not the true story, but it's become comfortable in many different ways for them, whether it's just become their narrative, their story, or it also offers them some sort of support from others around them that is feeding them. So they stay in, so this pain and suffering again is outweighing the joy and light and love piece here in the world.
If you think about like the mass shootings, for example, right? You know that what's going on with the shooter is sort of everybody should be as miserable as I am, right?
Yeah,
And so I'm going to make everybody as miserable as I am.
there you go.
And so what ends up happening is that in the debris that's left is the grief and the fear and the anxiety, the angst that goes with that. And, all that energy, that frequency takes a nosedive, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more they do that, the more the collective comes down, right? And our work is really, and I think what's the work that people are trying to do right now, which is to say to everybody, don't stay in fear, don't stay in that negative energy. Instead, raise ourselves up to the purpose of this, that it's a bigger purpose than what we know, that we're shifting the planet upwards, that they're not going to succeed. It's really reclaiming that collective, that positivity, and trying to get us, so that the balance is shifting back in the other direction. Yeah, because the more we suffer, the more it goes down towards that. But with the joy, you come back up again.
Yeah.
And the more forgiveness,
Mm.
do you know what I mean? I just had a sweatshirt made out of Ho'oponopono. I did. I had the whole thing done. And anyway, but because it starts with, I'm sorry, please forgive.
Did you send one my direction too?
I'm never telling you. You've got you're getting a t-shirt that says vagina across the front.
Oh my gosh.
But you see, even that's it. We're laughing about using that word, but you know what we're doing with it? We're loving it at the same time.
Exactly. We're bringing joy.
Raising it up and saying, hey, I'm happy to have this body.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy to be here. And if it needs to be changed, then okay. And of course,
Right.
I'm saying it with this, whatever this thing is that's hung over me for 3 years. It's like, I'm sort of going, yeah, okay, all right, good. But but it's also, remember that we're in the 3D. We've got to maneuver, we've got to manipulate, we've got to change the 3Ds, the vibration of the 3D to higher. But it's not going to change by us ignoring it, right? It's going to change by us lifting it up.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of be in it and lift it up. And that's why those protest marches, those massive protest marches, those various social actions that people take on are so critically important, because what they're doing is saying, no, no, you're not going to do this. We're going to, and then, like the last big women's march, women are wearing the pink hats and they're celebrating, they're dancing and they're carrying on, and they're yelling out words like, I'm proud of my vagina, it's like that kind of stuff, right? So it's both embracing the collective, and it's also shifting that frequency.
Right. And changing the narrative of who we are as identified women. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So does she have anything to say?
Well, if we have something specific to ask, we can certainly ask a specific question. But right now, she's just showing me dancing, just dancing, and movement, just movement and dancing. And so I like that, because that alone, I feel like she's showing us that is a rise in frequency when you do that. Even watching her or visualizing someone dancing, you can just visualize it in your head. If you are immobile, that alone will help shift and move. And she's also showing me that connection again, in that collective conscious. When you model something, when you model hold on. Sorry, I'm listening. So when I mean by model, when you live like what the world can look like, so the things that we've been talking about, when you live like that, it literally raises just you alone. That ripple effect of you
Yeah.
raises the consciousness.
Yeah. You don't
Just
have to
by modeling, you don't have to do it, you just model
Yeah.
it with your daily living.
And that's what I was going to say is how do we rise up? And I think that says it all. It's like we rise up in a whole myriad of ways, right? You can rise up by going out in the streets. You can rise up by going around your house. I mean, you can rise up by, and we've talked about this before, by just showing up. Just
showing up and
some
again,
way, show up.
you're modeling what the world can look like.
Right.
Just by your daily actions.
Right.
You don't have to,
right.
You're not asking you to do it, you're just living it. And that alone raises, but of course, all these other things that we talked about helps, like getting marching and doing those things. And
well, because those also send another kind of message.
And
that big, powerful message is very important to the powers that be, that they think they're in charge and they're not.
And that's just a different way of.
Oh yeah, but that's what I started to tell you about. What that man read to the school board was, you politicians can try and restrict us as much as you want, but the truth is, you're not winning the culture wars. You might win the political wars, but you're never going to win the culture wars, because I don't know if you've noticed, but our kids have social media. They see gay rights flags everywhere. They are seeing people with Black Lives Matter and protests. They're out there in the world. They're on the internet. They're awake, and they're not going to go in, and you're not going to push them back in because they're not going to go. So you might be able to win the political wars. You might get reelected, but you're never going to win the culture wars.
And they don't even know what in is. They don't even know what a box looks like.
No.
Again, they don't even know what a dial-up telephone looks like. Do you know what I mean? So it's the same kind of concept, but in a different way. They don't know.
Right.
They don't know a world without a computer or a phone in their hand. What?
I know I told you this story about when I said to a group of students, big group, so what are you going to do when the cyber wars come?
Oh, right.
And the room went totally silent. And I said, so what are you going to do when the cyber wars come? And one of the students raises her hand and she says, I'm going to use my phone. And I said, no, you're not, because there'll be the cyber wars and you won't have a phone. And she's like, oh. And this other kid, he says, well, I'll be fine. I'm just going to stay in my apartment. And I'll walk down to the grocery store and I'll get my food and all that. And I said, so who pays the rent in your apartment? And he looked at me and I said, and how do they pay the rent? And it was a moment where he was like, oh my God, we pay it on the internet. And then I said, and how are you going to get into the grocery store when the doors automatically lock because they're on electronics? And he's like,
how are you going to drive your car?
Right. Well, he's living in the city, so I think he was.
Oh, right. He's walking.
But it's that disconnect, that total disconnect. That these are generations that have only known that. And I said, so you know what the first thing you should do when the cyber wars come? And they're all looking at me. I said, you find an elder. You find somebody who's lived through it without.
Right.
And they're like, oh.
But that's just a good example, guys, of showing that it's a clear picture of the generation coming in, and how that they are not in a box. They don't have the same concepts that we had to grow up with, or that we know, or and that you can see that physically by that that scenario. So we are, I feel we're at a good spot to move forward in this, to end this conversation. And she is saying dance, 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 and also model, continue to model. This is something we can do. So continue to model what the world can look like.
And women need to find their voices, and women need to express their joy, whether they're joyful or not.
Ooh, I like that. Let's find our voices.
We've got to find our joy, whether we're joyful or not.
And joy. Yes. Ho'oponopono.
Yes, which, and by the way, it's an ancient Hawaiian practice, and it goes like this: I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, and I love you.
Oof. Gives me
And
chilly
you
bumps every time.
release all sorts of stuff. Yes.
Love it. All right. Love you guys, and we will see you next time on Wisdom Behind Awakenings. Love you.
Okay.